We're snorting cap rates and shooting up cash flow here at Deal Junkies.
Welcome back to Deal Junkies. We're not the Deal Donkeys, we're the Deal Junkies. We got special guest Bob Thomas in the studio.
Hey, yo.
Trevor Howard.
Bowling alley.
Dane McKinney.
Yeah, I asked if we could go do a round of bowling in between this, and Mike shot it down.
Oh, I hate bowling.
I hate bowling as well.
I like bowling. I think bowling is
You
great.
can go play.
Let's go. All right.
So, great learning way to, like, here's how you just deflect things. You just act like you didn't hear it. So it's like details,
what'd you
right?
say?
You wanted to go bowling. So you said, let's go bowling. My mind goes, we have to ask someone to turn it on and noise and all these things. And all these detail questions came up, and I just then ignored the conversation. My mental health is amazing. If you can just ignore details, mental health.
That's why we're going to start with the care facility, right?
That's why we're starting with the care facility.
Mike was
Let's go.
recently admitted or purchasing. It's
He was admitted into a purchase contract.
I don't know. We don't know the whole structure. That's why Mike's going to break it down for us. What do we got?
Yeah, care facility. Interesting asset class. And we started talking about Bob, and he's like, sell it, because he doesn't like the asset class. I'm intrigued by the asset class. I think everyone understands why it's an important asset class with just how demographics are changing. But what a lot of people don't understand is the dynamics of that asset class, what you need to own, what you need to have, what your clientele is, how do you provide that clientele, and then how do you operate it. And what you see in that asset class typically is big operators, big properties, great systems, good properties, easy to lease, yada yada yada.
I don't have a desire to own hotel either, and I feel like it's it's a piece of real estate that has a lot of management intensity around it.
Yeah,
and that's where for me it's like, fuck, another goddamn business to learn.
That's exactly what it is. It's a heavy operational lift. And so that's where my interest of this came, from an ownership side, right? So from an ownership side, if I don't have to own a business and operate a business, or if I can start a business and have the right people in it, or buy a business and have the right people in it, then you can have this global stack persona to it. And I've been fortunate enough to meet a couple of people that own a decent amount of these like mid-sized care facilities. And that's the target focus why I'm interested in the asset class. Like the idea of building a care facility tower with institutional money makes me want to like commit suicide. But buying value add little care facilities and potentially then creating a business model around them and then size it up through operations. And so now you combine the business piece to the asset piece, and now you can attract family office capital or institutional capital. So you increase your multiples. And so that's what's got me intrigued on this asset class. The problem is how do you buy it? How do you operate it? How do you make income? And so the backstory on this one is 50 units, 19 of them are active. And the income statement I have to work with to buy it is a screenshot of a one-page handwritten P&L. It brought in $1 million gross.
How much did it lose net?
Actually, well, on their records, it made over six figures. And so essentially what I did is I don't know anything about the asset class. I tried to buy another one from the same ownership group. We did buy another one from the same ownership group, but it has to be sober home. Just doesn't work. Like we brought care facilities, you bring operators through, like, yeah, cool property, we'll tear this down. Because the buildings don't fit, and that's the problem, is how do you then reclassify these buildings? And so one way I'm looking at it is sober homes. The nice thing about being in Portland and being somewhat of a derelict for part of my life is I know people that own sober homes. Did I say that? It was a small period of time, Mom. Don't worry. It's not where my tattoo came from.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I've got people that do those types of facilities. I've got a really good friend of mine who then runs commercial leases, single family homes to then mental health operators as well. Through that, I've met someone that now has a decent sized mental health operation. Their goal is a very similar goal, which is upsizing this mental health operation with multiple buildings, care facility, in-house, out-house, again, institutional size, and then sell to an institutional size lender. And so this deal kind of drops in my lap, which is, hey, here's probably what you can buy it for. They're definitely open to seller financing. And so I feel like we've got a really good deal locked up. We've got really good terms around it. We've got second position subordinate debt for 50% of the acquisition, which just gives us a good place. 10 years to that financing, interest-only payments to that financing. So that creates a pretty cool...
You should do principal-only payments instead of interest-only.
I'm not that smart.
Also, people just say no.
Most of the time,
hey,
people
seller, do you
say
want to
no.
pay taxes on
Yeah.
every dollar I pay?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're structuring it that way and you're sleeping well at night, we're different people. Or there's a specific reason for that. And so then I started talking to Bob. So these are my options, right? My options are partner with and not buy it, partner with an operator, sell it to an operator, keep some of the ownership, sell it fully to an operator. And then I just started mentioning it to Bob, and he already had ideas immediately. So boom, 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 boom. So I think that's what we're doing to start off this part of the podcast is let's talk about that deal. Then we're going to get into a little bit more background about the office deal. More specifically, you guys have a really cool cell tower deal that you and Sang did that we'll get into as well. So care facility, what was the first thing that ran through your mind, and where was that stuff going?
First thing that ran through my mind was fucking management intensive. I don't know shit about the asset class except that anyone who brings me one to get debt for, I can't find it. And it's not an asset class that excites me in the least. And so I was like, how do you ring the register on it as quick as possible?
Mhm.
Your subordinate second position debt. I say, all right, is there a way you can take that to your name and then sell the asset? Is there a way to just clip a little assignment? So, I mean, if you want to stay in it as an operator, as like a LP, get a little bit upside, great, if that helps the deal. But in my mind, anyway, I've bought shit that's not at scale before that has a lot of business around it. I bought a car wash. I bought a smaller mobile home park. I'm so sick of buying fucking like weird operating businesses that you really have to learn a lot that aren't scaled enough to do anything with. So if you have the idea that you want to do a portfolio roll up and scale it to the size of institutional, like good on you. Sounds like a lot of fucking headache. In my mind, it's like, hey, you've got what's the seller carry note? $1.5 million?
Mm-hmm. Million
bucks, 5% interest, sell it for $500,000 assignment fee, figure out how to take the debt onto your portfolio at 5% and let someone who knows what the fuck they're doing do it. But if you want to do the roll up, like, good on you.
Wait, explain that part a little bit more. You're saying to keep the debt in his name, move it to other asset pieces, or you're saying to wrap the debt and arbitrage it?
No, move the debt somewhere else and then get the cash.
And we did that on the first one, and this is exactly how we structured it. So we structured it 50% down, 50% seller financing, and then sold it to a sobriety partnership, right? So we're a partnership on the buy side. We go in on the buy side and just get the debt necessary to do the entire deal, the debt and equity based on a full-on cash out. But as the assignor of that property, we actually did a double close. So we bought it. We brought the half down. We, instead of collateralizing the other half on that property, we collateralized the other half on a different property, rental property. So now it's free and clear. And then that same day we sold it then to the partnership, which then runs that forward. So now we got a little bit of profit from that. And then we have the $250,000. And what we actually did is we used that money to refinance off other debt. And that's what other people like that collateral wasn't there for the other 50% seller carry wasn't there. And so what we did is we opened another escrow account. So that seller financing got moved to an escrow account, which then eventually then paid off through that refinance escrow, paid off that original debt. So you just have to have the assets in place. And that's what Bob said is take the $1 million and buy down all your other debt that's not great debt. So that's one option is...
Or if you have equity on the portfolio, because it's a subordinate, like he's already agreed to be in second or whatever. So, if you have space on the equity stack, like go and just, it's fucking 5% debt. What's the term on it? 5 years, 7?
10 years. 10 years, 5% interest only. And that's the beauty of it.
I would not pay down debt. I would take that shit and support.
And that's what I was going to say. So what are your options? Options are put it on equity you already have. Right, if you've got leverageable equity, you can put it there.
And you structure it to where he'll allow you to subordinate on other properties as well?
Yeah,
okay.
Yep.
So you just have a line of credit.
Wait, you start with the start with the subordinate conversation, and so that's like that's upfront, and then it's like, hey, and we're gonna substitute your collateral. You're still gonna be in subordinate position.
Mm-hmm.
Can you splice the note up too?
We'll have that conversation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's
at the end of the day, once you have that the relationship established and the financial metrics there, people can't wrap their brain around this. The collateral is literally the most insignificant portion of that.
It's the borrower.
It's the borrower, it's the plan, and it's the trust in that plan. And so if you can then say, hey, this collateral is great, this collateral is better, and clearly articulate why this is better, it's just a fundamental conversation.
It's better for me.
Yeah, you should have them go in third position on something you already have 100% leveraged.
No, because that's not leverageable
No, I'm just
equity.
kidding.
Because that is being a shithead.
That is being a shithead, and that's where I like rules, right? Like there's a rule of the definition of leverageable equity, right? So
Yeah.
you can sell it and cash it all out, and it still is net positive cash flow. So that's one option is buy down, pay off other debt and replace it, which is not a great option because that doesn't get you anywhere other than potentially better cash flow. You can add it to use it as an equity line, essentially pull equity out of equity you already have on properties. Or the other thing people don't realize is you can go use that money to go buy another deal as long as you have that deal lined up, right? So you can get that next deal, $1 million cash out deal in escrow, close this one, have the seller finance, then go to that next purchase escrow and buy that.
Don't you have that deal lined up right now that you guys need about $1 million for?
No, we need
We need
five.
more than
Well,
$5.6 million.
there's a little bit of it.
There's a little bit. There's timing that, timing all, and that's the thing. The other timing is the most important factor, I think, in everything. Sometimes things don't align, and that's where long time windows are super helpful because it just allows more time for things to align. So, and here's the update of where I am on the care facility is I've got the sober home partner I'll lease it from you, I'll buy it from you, I'll partner with you, right? I'll bring the capital, so that's a pretty easy exit where maybe Bob's then scenario works really well in that, right? It's like, okay, I can make some money, I can hold some ownership if I want, I can take the debt if I want, I can probably do all those if I want. But then it doesn't meet that overall arching aspect of, well, I can build a business model around this and I can potentially scale it. And when we talked about in the other episode is what's so important to real estate is then the actual deal. And the reason why I'm kind of excited about that is because this is the second care facility in less than a year that I've had an opportunity to buy. And I met this group of owners right after they sold another care facility, and they own more. And they need an exit. And it's one of those relationships, one of the 5, right, where they need an exit strategy. Selling to care facility operators is not an option for them because they won't sell to these operators. Every operator that comes through says, we'll tear it down. And so then there is this component where I can potentially be their easy access strategy. They're super wealthy. Seller financing is all they want, right? So there's these other components that then, okay, greed, where does that come in? Distraction, kind of where all that comes in. I don't know how this became Bob's deal, and now we're getting coaching on my deal, but...
Well, that is, so you said distraction, and that is what I have gotten more and more concerned about and cognizant of over the past few years. Like, I mean, we're all deal junkies. That's why we're sitting here, all like entrepreneurial bug. I know every time I have, like, historically, I've had one day where I didn't have a completely full schedule, I go and start a fucking business. Start another fucking, and then it's like, it's this ongoing, indefinite lived thing. And I'm like, oh fuck, I just like totally blew my schedule up. So like saying no to things, unless you have a very clear vision of what you want, sounds like you might have that. But like, man, that sound in my world with the amount of shit I've got going on, and I've got a fucking 5-month-old daughter at home and a 4-year-old son. I'm just like, holy fuck, a whole nother business that I need to figure the fuck out. I was like, no, dude, just ring the register.
Yeah. Yep.
No question.
But yeah, and individual goals create individual exit strategies. And the other kind of component to this is where my businesses are at. It's actually flipping and development is working on its own. Acquisitions, property man, everything's kind of working on its own at this point. And now me getting into commercial is just an expansion through me and not my people.
Mike's transition.
So it's
Mike's
a distraction to me, not
Mike's-
my business.
Mike's bored.
Yeah. Is that
Not
what
enough
it is?
golf to play.
Not enough golf.
What's your handicap?
I'm trending back in the right direction. Dude, Creekside's rough.
It's a
I'm
wild
four-
way to not
I'm a
answer that.
14. I went from a 12 to a 14. I think I'm going to get back down.
All right, so get in 6 or less, and then start another business.
I like that. I like that metric. Yeah. No, I mean, it's a lifestyle decision.
That's funny.
Okay, so those are my options then. I think I like the idea of partnering with a little bit of partnership, making a little bit of spread, setting that partnership up for success, but then taking the debt off and then go buying something that's in my wheelhouse that my team can just kill it with.
Can you do this quick enough to drop in your office tower deal?
No, because I could. Well, yeah, they could subordinate to the family office. But I don't want to do that. That's my financing. It's not the deal's financing.
Yeah, but you could use it as more ownership for
couldn't-
you in the deal.
I was gonna
at
say-
5%.
Oh, with a different property.
should've
I could just use the $1 million cash as
Yeah.
an LP.
You could do it. You could do it just on that property using mezzanine. Could you not?
Well, but then
'Cause
I'm
you'd be able
bringing
to
debt to the
arbitrage.
table. I don't want to bring debt to the partnership.
Well, but
I
it's
wanna
debt
bring
to your
equity.
LLC, right? Is that not? Am I missing that? Bob knows way more than me about this stuff.
I mean, yes to all around. I mean, like right now we're buying it all cash, right? And if
Mhm.
he's subordinate, and like it would totally work to have them in second position,
Right.
Like as debt to the whole deal, but it would be everyone's debt,
Exactly.
and he likes 5% debt for himself. So
That-
you could put it on your own property,
Correct.
take the cash, invest it somewhere
Yeah,
else.
and so then I'm paying $50,000 a year to then own $1 million of interest in this property
With like
that's
a,
not
with like a
providing income
4x,
for
with like a 4x upside.
like so a $4 million upside.
Sounds like you should do that.
Yeah, but then
You
how am
gotta
I
believe
paying
it.
the $50,000 every year in debt service while I wait for that 4x upside?
You could gamble on the golf course for.
Yeah, this
I'm
is where
getting
the six-
good.
This is where the 6 handicap comes.
Yeah, just become a ringer,
Well, if you do have a property with the equity that you could pull out of it,
Yeah.
just
and then it's
Keep-
paid for by the but that's
well, but don't even do. I mean, you could even only just put 900,000 into the office tower, and then you have
Oh.
2 years of office
Oh.
or payments
Oh,
on the
I like
debt
that.
to
to offset it.
just put it in that bank account, in that reserve account.
See, whoever's listening, this is why you just run ideas across people because they all come up with something different. I love it. Okay, thank you for the coaching.
So where are you at with the office tower though now?
Yeah.
You guys are going all cash now, you said? Because from when you last talked about on the podcast, you guys were doing some debt structure, and then you recently brought in Bob too to help
Mhm.
help you guys with the deal, and now you're structuring it differently.
Yeah, this has been a really cool, interesting aspect. Well, and like when we first kind of had that interview about it was we had a partnership conversation about partnerships, and then so we talked about like Bob and Sang have a partnership, and they've had a partnership, and we've talked about, I send them my vague Siri text. You guys got to make me a GP. You got to be co-GPs. I've been begging to get at the table. And so then the hearing more about the background. So the deal came through one of Bob's contacts. It was sent to Bob, and then Bob sent it to Sang, and Sang ran with it, and Bob kind of watched, for what I understand. And then as Sang, and I kind of watched Sang. I was at the table. I was in the conversations, but Sang led most of it, and I just kind of watched.
And honestly, so I know because CBRE is the broker on the deal. I worked with the main broker who's listing this. I didn't want to have any part in that negotiation anyway. Sang is a savage negotiator, and I mean, whatever your viewership or listenership on like ethnic stuff, like his ability to use his like kind of quasi broken English as an asset in negotiation is fucking unreal, dude. And, I mean, he kills it, and he can ask for the most like egregious things in a negotiation and get them just because like he can kind of play it off like a cultural thing. and so like I literally knew the broker, and I was like, that's probably a disadvantage for me to come in and negotiate this. Like, let Sang do what he does best, and he fucking cleans up every fucking time.
That makes a ton of sense because that's exactly how it worked. And I remember being in the background going, I trust you. Okay. Sure.
There's been so many times, I think, and Mike said this too, where like you see what the deal is that's already negotiated. You're like, all right, we should just sign this. And Sang's like, no, bro, I'm gonna get another $300,000 off. Just fucking watch me.
Dude, we have these broker conversations, and so our brokerage is group coaching, right? So we have a call every once a week. Sang comes on with his crazy deals, and he's like the money of the show. And there's so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've said, Sang, sign the deal. And you don't hear anything for a couple weeks, and you bring it up, and you're like, did you do that deal? Saying he's like, oh, we're going to sign tomorrow. I got him down another 10%.
How many deals does he lose doing that?
So funny.
I don't think he cares.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
No, why
It's
would
worth
Yeah.
it.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
And it's funny because everything he buys is on market. And we actually, this came up on a conversation on our brokerage call the other day, which was, he's like, I just have a mindset that I'm going to get these people down to where I get them. And he's not saying this agent on this deal. He's saying as a whole globally to RMLS, when I see the things that I see, if I do what I do, these are coming down to where I can buy them. And he was the first one in 2022. He came to me, he's like, Mike, we're going to start buying stuff at the 1% rule. And if anyone in June 2022 said you're going to buy stuff at the 1% rule in Portland, no one would believe you.
Yeah.
But that comes from that mindset of I'm just going to make so many offers at the 1% rule that I'm going to buy them at the 1% rule. And that's what he does.
We were buying 1% rule deals basically the entire time.
Yeah.
And like they're value add. So you value add to a 1% rule kind of thing.
Okay.
Like a return on cost or, whatever else. But like, yeah, I mean, that's just, and what's cool is in the commercial space, it's way easier to make that happen, it seems, than on the resi side, especially going back to the conversation we had earlier with like non-institutional owners of commercial real estate. Like you just find these guys who they're owner of a business that happens to own the real estate, and they don't really give a fuck about the value of the real estate. And it's like, all right, well, let's do this. Like we did what is this? It's a 18 triple net deal, $18 a year, and we're in it for $13 a foot.
Oh,
33%. That's
What?
more than 30. That's like almost 50%.
It's like 1.5.
Yeah,
it's
it's
like a
one-
1.5% roll. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's just like a, random commercial. But, it's just, that is where Sang's little, I'm going to get 300 grand more off before we close kind of thing. That's what makes those happen.
So with the office tower, why are you guys going all cash now versus debt?
Well, the whole idea originally was all cash on the purchase side.
Okay.
And this is where, again, now I don't know how to underwrite those deals. And so I'm modeling it purely from a Burr model standpoint, really rudimentary. And then Bob gets in here and he's like, well, yeah, that works, but we still have $5 million of TIs that we need to do and leasing up and all this. And so we need this type of debt structure. And Bob started getting his team involved in changing the different type of underwriting models. And so it's essentially the same type of plan, but
There is a different, we still could use acquisition debt. I think that what hangs everyone up.
$13 a foot
Yeah.
Are you going
for
backwards?
what? Yeah, I'm going way backwards.
No, sorry.
Wait,
sorry.
that's his rent, his cost.
130?
No. Just 130 a foot basis
Okay,
on 18 a foot rent.
that's what I was missing.
Okay.
I thought you were saying $13. Well, you
Oh.
said $13 a foot. I thought.
Sorry, I thought I said 130.
No,
on
okay.
on 18 a foot.
That
Yeah,
clicks.
yeah.
Wow, heavens! Oh my goodness! I
Yeah.
was like, Sang is ripping deals. We need to get that guy on our team. That's less than bare land.
That's just a little
Holy
insight into
smokes.
Dane's financial mind. He couldn't let that go by. I didn't even
No.
know what it meant, so I just kind of blew by it.
Okay, no, that's much better. Okay, fair enough. Yep.
But there is still. I think that what I've found challenging with people working with people who do resi deals is on the commercial side, deals just take fucking longer to close.
Mhm.
And the resi people have this mindset where I'm going to sign a 30-day, no contingency. We're going to get this thing closed. And it's like, bro, the debt isn't there. The financing, you need to fucking syndicate. The seller doesn't even give a fuck. Like they'll give you 75, they'll give you 60 of DD and 75 to close. Like that's what they're used to. But people, it's like, just write that in. And so I think we're already squeezed a little bit on the time frame.
So you got, because I remember when you told me your EM went hard in 30 days in, right?
Yeah, so we're not there yet, but we're
Okay.
close. I think we're going to probably like try to push that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's like we don't have enough time. We should have enough time, and there's no other buyers for this fucking thing. So we should have enough time to be able to get acquisition debt. I think the hard part is you're buying a 100% vacant office building in downtown Portland, and you need to be at about 30% occupancy to cash flow with some debt. And so getting your comfort level around how long it's going to take to lease that is the challenge. What's cool is like you can debt finance the TIs and LCs because that means that you're going to get cash flow from a tenant, right? So like good news dollars. But like financing the acquisition, that's like ballsy. And so we've already got some stuff down around. We probably have a few tenants in place. We'll probably come in with 20% occupancy, pushing to 30 pretty quickly. But now that we have that, we're already like through a lot of our DD. We probably don't have time to put like acquisition debt on.
Okay. So you're using family office money now, or what money?
We're doing kind of like a syndicated model, and we're all going to end up kind of chipping in on it in terms of like all raising some money. I've got a couple of folks I'm going to send the pitch deck to. I was talking to him yesterday, and yeah.
But right now, the pitch deck is then using family office line of credit to build out the TIs. So buy
Okay.
it cash. So the raise is based on the full cash that we need to buy it, get it to that 20% occupancy. And then the goal is LPs that are then tenants.
So some of them.
Some of
so
them, yeah.
basically, it's high net worth syndicated equity, some of which may have like a tenancy stake as well. But high net worth syndicated equity with private debt to finance the TIs and LCs, and there is likely a world where we're going to be using more like debt fund, like more institutional type money to finance those TIs and LCs to make it a little cheaper, non-recourse, etc.
Okay. So you feel like no problem getting the money for it.
But the equity is the cash purchase is where we're working right now.
Yeah.
I think getting the leasing capital is super straightforward. And if we had more time, getting 40 to 50% of the purchase price in debt probably wouldn't be hard either. It's just like the nuts you have to be able to do that without a tenant in tow. They're big.
Well, yeah, and here's why: is you buy that building cash, you have no debt on it, you're still spending $50,000 a month operating it.
Yeah.
And so if you then take on however much debt, that just adds on to that. So how do you go raise capital saying, oh, we're bleeding $1 million a year potentially? You don't. You go raise with, here's the plan. We're raised. We're occupied to 20%. We are not bleeding. So you're not going to have to bring any more money to the table.
And I think what's cool about this kind of deal is usually when you syndicate a deal, to make the numbers work, you need to use a bunch of debt, right? Limit your equity so you get all the spreads and the GP still makes a bunch of money. But when you're buying such a good basis deal, right, you can get your LPs like a multiple kind of deal, not an IRR, like straight up multiple, like 3-4x on their money in like 5 years. And the GP still makes a bunch because you're getting at $50 a foot. So you just don't need the debt. It'd be great if there was super cheap debt to do it, but there isn't, and the deal doesn't necessarily need it as long as you can raise that equity.
Yeah. Dang, that's sweet. Well, we'll keep updating you guys on that deal as Mike goes along. If it fails last minute, then you're going to have to share that with everyone, too.
Oh, I'm going to have to eat some fucking crow.
But
that would suck.
Yeah.
We want to be the demise of me.
There are going to be so many more fucking office deals like this. Like, I think what's
But
cool,
not like this one, Bob.
there's no.
Yeah, you guys better hurry up.
Not like
contribute,
this one.
give Mike some money.
Every piece of real estate is individual. No, I think what's cool about this deal is the amount of capital improvements that were put in by the prior owner, right? And so you've got $19 million of capital spent in the last 3 years on it. You're buying, and it was bought for 19 spent, and you're buying it for 5. And so like it is fucking nice inside. Yeah.
Oh, it's class. It's you walk in and you.
Whoa, dude.
Yeah. And so they bank financed it for First Interstate, took it back, can't fucking sell it because it's Portland office. But yeah, so you're like, if it was a non-rehabbed Class C office, you could probably buy it for $15 or $20 a foot, but you'd have to put in 100, 200 in this case, just to get it to where it is right now. So, we've looked at the residential conversion play and everything else, but it's like, it's already in such a good state. Like, just as long as we can get to 30% occupancy, at some point, the office market's going to come back. No reason to spend a bunch of extra capital to potentially hit some numbers that are probably like pie in the sky.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing of the way we have it modeled is the office market only has to come back to 50%, 60% of what it was for us to just
Kill it.
Yeah. And then if it does come back to even 80% of what it was,
I'm a jealous
So
man.
that's when we do this podcast from different arenas around the globe.
So why does no one else want this deal if it sounds so awesome?
So I think right now, you're playing in a space where usually it would be an institutional buyer, right? But institutional buyers need to have like quantitative data to support their underwriting, and you just can't get that. Like you've got to be a basis buyer right now, and you've got to kind of have like the idea that, hey, we probably have tenants for 30% of this, and at 30%, we're going to do fine until it all figures itself out. But if you're an institutional investor, you can't go to your capital partner and say that. You've got to be like, here's the occupancy rates, and here's my fucking, all these different metrics. And you can't do that right now. You can't justify a cap rate. You can't justify like where stabilized occupancy ends up trending to an office. Like there's all these metrics that like make institutional investors stop. And who's buying office towers who's not an institutional investor? I
think the best analogy for this is the apartment market construction boom in Portland in like 2012. I'll segue into this is essentially the banks. One reason the bank took our offers because we're local guys. We know the local market. Now let's segue that into the apartment boom talk. The way the apartment construction started was the local developers that knew Portland started building apartment buildings, and they bought land at dirt prices, built them at dirt costs, and then they found people that then they absorbed them. So now you have all the metrics that then now regional money can come into. So they built their first wave of projects. They sell all of that to regional money, and now you're on the market. And while they were absorbing and selling to regional, they bought all that other land to then build the next wave with the regional money. And then you have that third phase, which is now you're on the national institutional circuit. And so that's kind of what the market, I look at the office market as right now, is the only people that can actually get this done are the local people that understand the long-term vision based on the metrics here are not here right now. Like someone yesterday asked me, well, what are cap rates in downtown office? Well, I don't know. What's ours? 0? It's not even 0. It's negative $1 million a year. So it's negative 20.
They're non-existent, right?
Yeah.
You don't have enough data points to be able to say what a cap rate is in Portland right now.
And so that means we are the buyers. The local people are the buyers. They have to recreate the market and then get that brand changed.
Well, and I said this when I was doing the presentation at your guys' thing. Cap rates are the most bullshit fucking metric ever.
Mhm.
Like, they only are a real data point if it is a stabilized property in a, like, slightly inflating market.
And a market that has transactions to
Yeah.
show what expectations are.
Yeah. But it's like, a cap rate in this environment, a cap rate on 50% vacant thing, like, it's a return on cost model or something like that. Like, especially in office, when you start looking at, like, all right, well, what's the weighted average lease term, right? And, like, when are you going to start rolling things, like marking leases to market? It could be 5 years out, but, like, are you looking at your year 6 yield on cost? Because that's probably the metric to use in that, not a fucking day one cap rate. Right. So I hate, like, when people ask me that question about cap rate. I'm like, you don't fucking know commercial real estate.
It's the best way to know you don't know real estate is how many units do you own? What's the cap?
How many doors do you own? I'm like, well, I'm gonna buy,
That's
like,
my favorite question.
I'm gonna buy 3 shipping containers of doors from China. I just added 300 doors to my portfolio, motherfucker.
No, we closed on probably the best deal we've done last week at a 3.5 cap.
Mhm.
And I didn't even know what the cap rate was. I just knew where we were going to take it in the next 2 years and how much value could be created.
What's your stabilized yield on cost?
What does that mean?
Where are you going to take the cap rate to with the amount of improvements you do to it?
Is that like your internal cap rate?
Yeah, yield on cost. It's stabilized
Yeah.
NOI.
Oh, yield on cost.
Yeah.
I thought you said deal on cost.
No, yield on, yeah. So
I've never heard
stabilized
that.
NOI over purchase price plus stabilization cost.
Mhm.
We're gonna have 600,000 of NOI ish,
Yeah.
and we're gonna be all in at 4.5 ish.
So it's
Or
like,
sorry,
So 15.
No.
sorry,
yeah,
4.
15-ish.
Yeah, we're going to be all in at 4 mil. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
15
15%.
yield on cost and what is it, a multifamily
Yeah.
in a 7 cap market? That's phenomenal. Yeah, like that is the spread, right? It's market cap rate versus your stabilized yield on cost. Like, that differential, that's your fucking profit.
That's the only metric I've ever looked at.
Me too.
And the 10-year yield. That's all I care about.
How
What's the 10-year yield? What's our yield on cost?
Yeah, we were looking at that just as we had an earnout on the front end, so we could pull all our money out and then hold it on long-term fixed rate debt, and that's all, like, why we liked it.
Which is what you were saying. You pitched to your investors, and that is what we pitched on this deal, but I don't know why that should just be how we're looking at every deal. Now that I'm
Well, especially, I mean, it's kind of self-serving, but when you have a property management, asset management company and you're getting recurring fees, why do you want to at any point give up the capital you've already raised and the deals you've already done? Like, that is feeding your payroll and everything. It's keeping the fucking lights on. And so for us, it's like, no, we need to keep that fee revenue. I used to defer all my fucking equity. I mean, all my like current cash, broker fees, whatever, into deals. And now I'm like, no, I need an acquisition fee. We need, like, accounting fees and payroll and a bunch of other shit that go into these deals and burden them, because, like, we got to keep the fucking lights on.
Yeah.
Well, that's the evolution of an operator. I remember going to the real estate guy syndication summit, and it finally clicked on me why you charge fees. Those fees aren't for you to take. Those fees are for you to operate, so it is a safe investment for them to invest in, because if something happens to you, that money needs to be there for your staff to operate. The problem is fucking syndicators take those fees and go buy boats and planes and all that bullshit.
Okay.
But that's not what they're for. Hey, no comment. No comment.
They don't buy boats. They just buy the racks.
Yeah. That wasn't with the fee.
After they rip them
That
off.
wasn't with the fee.
Yeah.
No, that was huge. I mean, and you talking about going from, like, what do you need to become versus what does the business need to become in the last episode? It was like, no, it's not about me. It's because I realized that, and that's what Trevor and I are going through right now, is realizing that I actually don't, and I've told the people we're working with, like, I don't care that I get the acquisition fee right now, but we are going to underwrite 2 or 3% on that, because I want to hire somebody to do that at some point. Or if I'm incapable of doing it in a year, I need to be able to say, hey, guy who we're hiring on, every deal that we've bought, this is what you're going to get paid. We have maybe a salary for you, and the reason we can have a salary is because I already have the acquisition fee built in. Or, hey, you're getting one of the 2% on every single deal that we do. It's not even a salary.
And you have to look at it as a business and not you.
Yeah.
So again, good questions change the future. I had a lender last week ask me, what happens when you die? Fuck, how do you answer that question? If I die and their
You go
money
to
is in the
hell
middle
for
of a
you
project.
personally, but
No, for them. So what happens to them if I die? They are a lender. They are in an active project. How do they get their money back out of the project? That's it's a very
question.
legitimate question to ask.
I've been asked that by some
Yeah.
LPs.
And it's like, great, I have a very good answer for it, but then you have to look at,
What's the
okay,
answer?
well, it's the nice, again, it goes back to where's my team at? You're in our system. You are collateralized. I have a second in command. They know our entire system.
Keyman Life Insurance.
Keyman Life Insurance, which is in place. And then it's just now she's talking to him, and he's getting her paid. He's making sure the project's finished. He's making sure that the project is then sold. But what if we both die in a car accident at the same time? And so then it's like, okay, so one layer's there, but what are the other layers we need to implement? And the great part of it is on the other side, my portfolio manager now is just showing so much worth, like more and more worth. And it's like, okay, well, there's the third stopgap, right? So I've got the second. First stop, I'm the first. I got second, command is second, and then I have my portfolio manager that'll be third. And so now when you start growing, and again, it's not who I need to become, the organization, what they need to become. And do you set that up to a succession plan? Like we think of a succession plan as the end. You should start that at the beginning.
I really think that the key person life insurance is huge. Like if you some people think about the life insurance side or whatever to start paying down debt. It's like if your deals are good, you want debt on the portfolio. You don't want to pay that shit off. But like if you've got $5 or $10 million of a life insurance policy, that can cover the salary of institutional quality operators for like 3 years, which is what you need to stabilize all your projects, and then you're good. And so that's the way we've looked at our Keyman life insurance policy is like, if everyone fucking goes away, can someone who's still around hire in the help and the money's there to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're stabilized and don't have to worry about it. So that's how we.
And that's a whole nother evolutional way to look at that, right? Like when we implemented Keyman Insurance is when I had a business partner who's like, well, if I die, he can buy me out, my family out. If he dies, I can buy his family out. But there's, again, levels to it. You need money, operating capital, so your investors live and your staff and their family live. And creating a business is not a joke. It's the biggest responsibility it is out there because it's no longer you.
No, it's terrifying. Yeah, that's Trevor. Trevor was a little bit stressed when he didn't have a ton of money, and then we started hiring on employees, and it was like, whoa.
like when
we
I
have to
remember
take
when
care of those
Trevor came
people.
in here and said, Sabrina quit her job.
Yeah,
Like that is shit gets real.
that was huge.
Yeah.
Well, and it's super exciting, right?
Yep.
But it's also like it motivates us to work harder.
Yeah, and you can't just look at the excitement. Like,
Yeah.
you can't get the dopamine. You need to experience the cortisol that comes out of that.
Yeah,
as
no,
well.
it's adrenaline.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
But
Let's talk-
wait, I wanted to really quick on the Keyman thing.
Okay.
Gabe has partners that are syndicators out of California who syndicate deals up here, and they don't take the same flight up.
Yep.
They won't fly on this.
yeah.
So all three of them will
Again,
come up on separate flights.
I mean, a lot of large scale. I mean, we talked about in the last one. I was working with Fortune 100 kind of companies. Literally in their HR policies, the key execs can't take the same flights.
Wow.
Like that is. I mean, and we audited their HR policies and all that shit for SOX compliance and everything. That is literally written in their policies and procedures.
That's wild.
I love that. All right, let's get to the cell tower. I've said this so many times, but the education you get as a real estate agent on escrow and title and ownership and fee simple and ground lease and all those other things is the most important education to an investor. When you understand ownership and how to split up ownership, it creates significant amount of value. So I'm going to try and set the stage. So the stage is it's a deal that Bob and Sang bought, and I remember Sang kind of bringing it to us in the brokerage coaching call. He's like, "Hey, Mike, I got the sweet deal. Like, look at this. It's a property. It's got 2 lots on it." That's my terrible Vietnamese accent.
that was a Vietnamese accent.
Something like that.
Don't do it again.
No, I'm not. So I think it's 2 businesses. It's essentially 2 tax lots, 1 property, 2 tax lots, 2 commercial properties, and then there's 3 commercial properties, and there's a cell tower on it.
Whoa. You say that one more time. You got 2 businesses.
All right, so there's it's 124th and Halsey ish northeast.
Okay.
2 adjacent tax lots, 3 different buildings on there.
Okay.
There's a preschool in like a 7,000-foot building. There's an appliance store in like a 6,000-foot building, and then there's a multi-tenant retail RC shop. And like it was vacant at the time. Now we have like a little other retail business in there, and that's like probably 4,000 or 5,000 feet. Attached to the appliance store in the back little area that one of the former owners built a cell tower and leased it out to Verizon and AT&T on like 25-year renewable leases.
Okay.
So you got all these leases in place, and it's 1 property, but it's 2 actual tax lots inside of that property, or 2 lots of record.
Mm-hmm.
And so going back to Bob's business model, which is he underwrites to a burr, right? Capital out, capital in, yield on cost, those types of metrics. And so what was kind of cool about this piece of property is, well, one, you can divide it, right? So now you can create 2 properties.
It was already 2. It was 2. So
Oh, that's right. But the building overlapped. On
yeah,
one.
there was a building, and we're going through a PLA right now to adjust that. But yeah, so the RC shop and vacant retail, that was straddling the 2 tax lots because it had been owned by one parcel, so they didn't give a shit.
So there's some property lines that need to get cleaned up. So now how do you maximize this deal? The way it's worth the most is 2 separate pieces of property. Got to clean up the property line because the building overlaps one. You've got some vacant retail space in the middle of COVID towards the kind of end section of the dangerous part of COVID. You've got obviously money that needs to go out with higher interest rates, and so a significant amount of liquidity.
And you've got a 20-year tenant in the appliance space that is significantly below market and coming up on a lease expiration, didn't exercise their renewal option, and we think we have them kind of cornered.
Okay.
That building is now vacant.
So you didn't have it cornered? Wow, that's funny. Okay, so the piece that maybe no one either gathered out of this is the value in the cell tower. And so that's where the original conversation started, was the value of the cell tower and what that lease is.
I don't have my phone with me. Someone pull up Google and pull up largest U.S. REITs. Keep going.
Yeah. Because the cell tower, if you think about who leases a cell tower.
Well,
Sounds like Verizon.
Credit tenancy.
What is credit tenancy? What is that?
They're like S&P credit rated,
Okay.
like AAA credit.
Okay.
The best tenants you can have, the biggest corporations that have the largest amount of cash flow, and that billboard is essential to what they do. And so now you have you have this kind of dinky asset property that you're buying, but it has inside of it one of the best assets you can own.
But it's already leased on 25-year renewable lease.
Yep. And this is where now understanding leases and understanding ownership structure matter. So what is it that the lease that was in place that you bought, that leasehold interest, what was that leasehold interest?
What do you mean by that?
Like, what were they actually leasing?
So they were leasing the cell tower, and one of I think it was Verizon, was also leasing a little equipment room separately that was managing it. So on a cell tower, and you don't really ever see these things. They kind of just like fleet into the background of like when you're driving down the street, but fucking everywhere. Just take a look. Those little gray things that are sticking up that have like a little kind of bump at the top, those are cell towers, and you'll see little things on there, like little antennas. You attach like a 2-foot by maybe 8-inch kind of antenna thing to it, and you can lease it out to basically all the main providers need those.
How tall is this thing?
They're like 30 feet.
Okay.
You'll see them all over the place. So there's little gray towers. You see them driving down the
Oh,
highway.
yeah.
All over the
Okay.
place.
Mhm.
And so all of the cell people, they pay like $1,000-$2,000 a month to lease like a space on there, and you can lease it out to all the different, because they all need it, and they all need coverage in that area. So you can lease it out to 3 or 4 or 6 or 15 providers if they need it. So
On one cell tower.
one cell tower.
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you're just hanging up their little antenna.
Okay.
So I just looked up the largest by market cap REITs in the country. So Prologis, which is industrial, American Tower, which is a cell tower REIT, Equinix, Welltower, which I believe is a cell tower REIT, Simon, Public, Realty Income has Crown Castle, cell tower REIT. Like if you SBA Communications, cell tower REIT, like 5 out of the top 10 largest market cap REITs in the country are cell tower REITs. They literally just go around fucking buying these things because what do you get? You get a credit tenant. So like there's back when I used to work at CBRE in the office side, people were doing what was it called? You would buy a building that had a credit tenant, like an Amazon or a Google or something like that. You could literally take that lease and sell the cash flow at a lower than the cap rate because of the credit tenancy. It's like selling a bond. And so you would sell it at like the bond rate, or you would underwrite those differently. And so these guys are able to say, look, I have credit cash flow coming in. They get a lower cost of capital, and they just go and fucking buy these things from all these mom and pop owners, and they aggregate them up. And so we had one of those. I have another site. I have a car wash in Vancouver. I keep getting letters from cell tower operators who want to build a cell tower on our site. Like it's a big business. And so they basically said, hey, like we'll buy your cell tower cash flow stream on a ground lease at he was like a 4.5 or a 5 cap in like a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you capitalize that income stream based on a really, really, really low cap.
Because of the credit nature of the cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so they're able to, pay like significantly less than what we paid for the cash flow. We paid like a 7 cap on the deal, and we sold that cash flow stream at like a 4.5 cap. We had put down, I forget. Anyway, we pulled out like $500,000, and our lender didn't make us pay down the debt at all. And we had 1031'd into it. So, like we never seen, like we started out with maybe $100,000 in the prior 1031 deal, rolled all those proceeds into this $2.7 million deal, and then got $500K cash out after like a year and a half.
So how come the lender didn't have a problem with you selling that ground lease?
I love working with regional credit unions. They are just more flexible, and I don't know if that's a function of them just needing more business or not being as sophisticated, but you can usually make, like, perfect example, not the same credit union, a different one. They didn't look at the fucking settlement statements when we were buying apartments. So we would start putting in huge repair credits, and it would go straight to net our cash to close. So I was getting bank debt at like 95% LTC. We just started pushing, because the first ones we did, we were like, oh, we just need a repair credit. And they were like, wait, they didn't even, like, we got a 78% LTC deal on this one. It was supposed to be a 75 LTV loan. So we just kept pushing and pushing. We got like over 90% LTC bank debt.
So your negotiations with the sellers just credits rather than price reductions.
Credit. So now we don't do that anymore because they caught on. They actually made us like recast the loan when they didn't audit it. They were like, you need to pay this shit down, bro. Like,
commercial debt, they'll come back and get you.
Yeah, but I mean, we got away with it for so long that it was hilarious. So now we end up just paying a little bit of tax on it, but we just push it all into our broker commission. Because they finance the broker commission, you pay tax on it, but you bonus appreciate it off, and it's not a big thing. But so that's the way we get around it. But we used to just put it right on the settlement statement. And it's because we were using slightly unsophisticated commercial real estate lenders who have effectively bank pricing, but just like not the same underwriting guidelines.
Mm-hmm. With the cell tower you had, did you have extra spaces that you could lease out on that cell
tower?
Yeah,
we did. We probably, like, they were coming up for I forget, it was AT&T, Verizon. One of them was coming up for a renewal. Like, they for sure got an okay deal. I just, like, for us, it was a super easy transaction that we, like, were effectively in for $100,000. We pulled 500 out in like a year and a half. Like, see, it sounds good to me. I'm sure that they're doing just fine on what they're doing. They renegotiated stuff. They can probably add more to it. They've got a good business model. And they've got, public markets to finance them. They have a good business model. So yeah, did we leave some meat on the bone? For sure. I assume so. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. So what do you do with the rest of these buildings right now?
So preschool is leased on a 7-year lease that's just doing its thing. Our C tenant has 2 years left on their lease. We leased out the retail building, and then we tried to squeeze the it wasn't even that much. I mean, we ended up wanting like maybe $1.25 net on some quasi retail, half like warehouse space. They ended up buying their own building.
Okay.
So it's vacant. We're doing a PLA, and we're
what's a PLA?
A property line adjustment.
Okay.
So we're making that on its own tax parcel. It also has the cell tower that's on its own ground lease that's already sold. But we're basically have a vacant 6,000-foot retail building that's either for sale or lease, and we're working on selling/leasing it currently.
How much did you say this was vacant when you bought it?
So it's like, what is it, 20,000?
Like 2,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Oh, that's okay.
It was a small portion that was vacant. Now it's like 6,000 feet that's vacant because of that bigger one, but we leased the other one out.
Sweet. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So just the ground lease. I love 1031s, man. There's been a couple 1031s where I start with like 50, 60 G's, and then in like 2 years, you've got like $3 million of equity, and you're like, oh, this is fucking cool. And that's another similar
Equity stacking. You have to stack equity.
Yeah.
That's where life changes. It's not your first equity stack. It's your third and fourth.
Yeah. Yeah. Those are cool. And so, just knowing that, I think I put in $10,000 on the initial 1031 deal, and then we operated it, and then, you end up owning, probably like 750 or 800 grand in equity out of a $10,000 investment 2 years ago. Like, that's fucking cool.
I think you should buy Bitcoin.
People say that. I just don't know other investments, man.
Right.
97% of my net worth is in real estate.
And here's what,
and the rest is cash.
And this is my answer to people that want to buy Bitcoin is just a market that you trade dollars to get Bitcoin. You can't get that type of a return just by buying into a market. You have to buy into something that that you can manipulate, and then that's how you get your outsized gains.
And I mean, you guys know this, but it's like every time I buy a piece of real estate, I know when we buy it that we made the money. You know, it's like you there's no, everyone's like, oh, you're a gambler, you speculate. I'm like, dude, I guess if I'm like a professional poker player, it's that kind of gambling where like you know the odds and you know you're going to win more than you lose, and this is why. But it's like for me, it's like investing. It's not gambling for us. It's like because I also don't underwrite any market appreciation. I know like I'm underwriting today unless the market's going to go down, in which case I'm underwriting the downside, right? But never the upside. My numbers are there's so much squish in there that like they call it buying an unfuck-upable basis.
Yeah.
Like, you need to buy an unfuck-upable basis.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love to give your thoughts because we buy those deals, but we also buy deals on high leverage where we're just like, okay, let's just get 10-year fixed rate debt on this thing, try to break even today, and we are betting on the upside. What do you think about those plays? Because we've talked about like that one deal we were showing.
But you're
you,
not
like that.
okay. So there's a difference between risk and bets, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I love taking on risks. I don't like making bets. If it cash flows today, are you making a bet?
No. is
No,
what you
you're
want me
taking
to
on
say.
risk. You're taking on risk that it doesn't get worse.
Sure.
You're taking on risk that market conditions can change. Like you're taking on risk.
Let me add
but
to
you're
that.
not-
We'll buy a property that bleeds.
I mean,
How much
but,
does it
but,
bleed?
But it's,
You know,
but
it's
it's
all relative,
bleeding,
but-
and we know even if we get it to today's rents that will cash flow. I mean, we don't buy something that's not going to cash flow at today's rents, and so assuming that rents stay the same or even go down
Sure,
a little bit.
right.
And the other side of it is on like a highly leveraged deal. If we're not bringing in outside money, our downside risk as brokers is just that we have to sell it. And we'll know, I mean, we're getting 10-year debt or we're getting 7-year debt, like minimum. And so it's like year 6, we're going to know what our position is and whether or not we have to sell it. And in that scenario, we've paid down the debt enough to at least just break even. And then we just manage the
So
property.
the debt is amortizing.
Yeah. We're not buying,
Sometimes.
on the.
So, well, here's a clear, like a distinction I like to look at it is a risk is a bet on yourself that you can then make things happen. A bet is that the market's going to make it happen for you, right? You're buying something that you're taking a risk that you have to perform on, and you have to get these below market rents, and you have to reposition the asset, and you have to get market rents. That is a bet on yourself. That is risk. You're not saying market rents are $1,200. We're going to do this and get it to $1,400 or $1,800 or whatever it is. You're not betting the market is going to change.
No.
You're betting, you're taking the risk that you can take what is currently here and get it to a current market conditions place.
How
And-
big is your guys' portfolio?
I own.
I'm at 60. You're at like 140 units.
Yeah, he's talking dollar volume.
Oh.
Like 20, 25-ish mil.
So yeah, I think at some point like I stopped wanting to just do deals to do deals,
Mhm.
right? Because like especially when we got the management company and you know basically it services itself and you can pay all that. Like we don't need to do more deals, and so why would I take on extra risk for like a break even deal that just revs the company and doesn't do anything? And so yeah, at first for sure I was doing more of those like, all right, it'll work ish, let's go, and fuck that. Like I'm so done with that. Like we do good deals or we don't do the deal anymore.
I think we perceive it as a good deal because it's no money out of our pocket a lot of times.
I just like want our model is so burry. I hear
Yeah.
you. It's just like I want to know that like I'm making a material impact on my net worth piece in the financial statement
Yeah.
within like 2 years.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I mean, if we have to put money in, absolutely. I mean, if
No,
if
we
we're
love the
raising
value add deals.
capital,
We just
yeah.
love doing more, and it lets us do more deals. But it's
I do like I used to want to do that, but I just feel like you know I want my employees to feel sane.
Mhm.
And when you start doing that, you end up just pushing the accelerator pedal down in like a lower gear, and you're just fucking just spinning the shit and just redlining, and everyone hates it. And you're not real like. I would rather wait and do like 4 fucking like awesome deals that actually add a bunch to me, and instead of like hoping that appreciation over time like gets me there, and just like redlining the fuck out of my company.
yeah.
I think in fairness too, the model is different in the sense that Gabe is the one who owns the management company, and the management company isn't built out just for us.
Yeah.
And so it's like, as far from an asset management perspective, they're not the heavy value add one, because the heavy value add ones, we're creating it and it's worth it. And then on super light value add, where it's literally just manage it better than the guys did before, like Gabe's management company is doing 80% of it, and then we have to do 20, which is just like keeping the business plan on track. Then it's like, we don't have employees that are under us that are it's 2 separate companies. I guess that's how I should put it.
Yeah, you get
So
to ride
it's
the
not-
machine.
Yeah, it's like this is literally just me, Trevor, and Gabe that are doing that, and so it's not. I mean, as long as we're aligned on those projects, like that's not something that we're going to go and put the burden on somebody else.
I hear,
for,
and I think over time with amortization and even with inflationary growth, like it will look good over time. For me, it's just like I don't have
Not
the
worth the
time in
work.
my fucking day.
Yeah.
Like
No.
I would rather focus on like bigger deals where like when you put in the focus, you made like $5 million.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, I'll give you that. Can't argue with that one.
He's answering and sitting from a place of privilege.
I
He's
don't-
done enough deals he can now cherry pick.
it was well, yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of work, but yeah, I mean,
Mhm.
like it's. I think once we scaled the fees to the point of being, because like our management company effectively pays the salary for like 3 companies. So once we were able to scale our fee base to the point of being able to like self-sustain that, it took a lot of stress off. We didn't have to do deals just for the fact of like, oh fuck, we need more like revenue in the company. It's like, let's do a deal because it's like a good deal. And when you do some deals that you penciled as break even or lose, you're like, oh fuck that. I don't like I'm not gonna do more of these. Like I want to know when I buy it that I bought a good goddamn deal and stuff. But anyway, to each their own. I understand what you guys are saying. Just yeah, like I need to say no to more things than say yes, and just headache on little deals. Just no, I'm over that shit.
No, I mean we've gotten.
Well, that's like the
closer.
deal we were running by you on the Zoom. Like like a year ago, we were looking at 14 units, something like that. It's like a $3 million deal, and it's like, okay, we could do this. It could make sense if these things factor into the market. And you're like, why would you do that?
Yeah,
Because we really like buying deals. That's
Yeah.
why.
I do too.
yeah.
I just really like. I get such a high. I mean, we talk deal junkies. I get such a high when you like get a really good deal in contract and you haven't figured out the capital, but it's a good fucking deal and you're gonna be able to do it. It's just a function of getting it done. Like that. I love that feeling. When I don't get that feeling on a deal, it's just like ugh.
Dude, that feeling,
Yeah.
we love that also, but then we delay the raising capital part, and it gets really stressful at the end. We just did that on a deal, on that 39 unit deal. Sick deal. We're like, oh, it'll be easy to raise money. Then we were like, oh shit, we got to raise this money. We got like not that much time left.
I mean, that we never had a ton of time, and that also wasn't. It was a hard market. It's like you're trying to pitch somebody on the outskirts of a tertiary market. You don't have a long list of and the guy who ended up buying it has a house there. Like it's he
He knows the market.
Yeah, he has a second home out there, and so he was like, oh, this is a sick deal. But he also knew, because he was actually, it's funny that you brought that up. He was part of CalPERS. So he ran the real estate arm for CalPERS for like 10 years. Yeah, no, he's a baller, but he knew he could work us. And so it was just like, he won. I mean, we won because we closed it and like, we're happy about it still, but he definitely knew that there was not going to be a ton of options for capital because he had been in the game for so long. I mean, he had done billions in transactions too. And it was just like, okay, this is what I can take from him because they need me.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, well, I guess that's the benefit of age and having lots of money.
So what was your guys' equity structure on that?
We're at 50-50 on it. So he took 50-50 and then
He's just raping you on the pref. That's all.
We gave him 15%
Yeah.
pref
Ooh, baby.
yeah.
on the money he
Yeah.
brought. So he brought in, we each put like 150 in on the front end. He brought the rest as pref, another like 500 or so. And then we structured it with the earnout and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then he'll fund if we go and add units and whatnot. He's committed enough money, also at 15% pref, where he'll put in all that as well.
So you
Yeah.
guys get the 15 on your 150.
No. So we're each 150, no pref on that, and then his extra 500 is 15% pref.
Oh, that is bullshit in my mind.
Yeah.
Like I think that all capital, so the way that we usually do it, and Mike's kind of seeing it on the office deal, is like I'll structure the GP to be its own thing that brings in no capital and just gets a piece, but then the GP, people will toss on the LP like as the GP.
Mhm.
contribution.
So we didn't do it as an actual syndication. Also, we just did it as a JV.
But the
same idea,
The
yeah.
theory is the
Same.
same, right?
Mhm.
And so like the return of capital, like I'm in the same line, pari passu, shoulder to shoulder with our LPs on the piece of money we put in, and then the promote crystallizes, and then the upside goes to this GP entity that we own that has like no dough in the deal. And
Mhm.
it gets
Yeah.
gets a carried interest.
Yeah, and that's because we were late in the game. Like, we could have done it better, but then we're like, okay, this guy, we want to bring in some of his knowledge for future deals and raising more money. So we're like,
But it's just
okay.
like if you have 300 and he has 500, I understand he's committing future.
So
equity,
150 each.
Yeah.
So sorry, between us and him. So 150 each on the front end
So
of
it was
equity, and then
150
500
for the
from him.
equity, and then everything beyond the 150 for 50% ownership.
Got it.
That's what he's getting pref on. And so the moment we pay him out on that portion, which should happen hopefully in the next,
Okay.
in the next 2 years for sure, but hopefully sooner than that, then it's just we're 50-50 partners on it.
Got it.
And so he's getting 15% accrued, but it shouldn't.
I understand that. That makes a little
Yeah.
more sense. And if it's accrued, okay, that makes a little more sense.
The other benefit is now you have a built-in construction loan at 15% without having to go get debt and redo everything that you have in place. So
Yeah,
you can then
dude,
expand.
That's the other part. Our loan got messed up at the closing table that day. We talked about on the podcast. I was like, this is a sweet deal because the bank is financing the first $750 of the construction, and they're just making us put in the last $250 for our 75%. We get to the closing table, we're like, no, that's not how this is actually going to work.
So frustrating.
And then they never let us know prior to closing, and we call them and they're like, no. And then we're just like, okay, like we have to buy the deal anyway.
Yeah. It was a miscommunication.
So is it going to be like a normal construction draw where they're going to draw on actually spent funds?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fine
Yep.
as long as you don't get.
Yeah, it's still fine, but it's not. It was
not
really
sexy.
cool
Yeah, yeah.
beforehand.
Yeah, a little piece of steroid was taken out, pulled back out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sweet. Do you got anything else you want to go over?
This was a long ass follow up
Those
episode.
deals.
I love it. We need to bring Bob. Can we just make a regular guest appearance?
Yeah, you should
for
come
Bob?
more. Yeah, that was fun.
I'm down. I'm a deal junkie, guys.
Yeah,
I'm like wearing a long sleeve shirt so
love
you
it.
don't see the track marks.
yeah. But, do you have a podcast studio in Bend? Can we go there and do
Ooh.
it there?
I have a single setup, not like a studio.
Mm.
But
Well-
you guys should just come to Bend.
Yeah,
We'll have equipment soon. We can just bring it out.
there we go.
Mhm.
I love it.
Just come in like a Sprinter van with like a fucking podcast
Yeah.
studio.
Oh
Go float the river. Yeah,
That'd be a good time. Yeah.
no, I'm talking like
it's a write off.
no,
It's a write off, boys.
A roving podcast studio and a sprinter.
You think we're all going to fit in a Sprinter van?
No, I'll do. it. That's my future self right there. When my kids are done and I'm gone, I'm retiring. That's what I'm doing. I'm gonna just travel around and podcast.
Sweet.
The road show, pony show.
Well, thank you guys for listening. Share this episode with your friends if you like it. And Mike is giving out free coaching in some random episodes, so go listen to all of them and figure out which one that was.
And to all the single ladies, he's available.
Bob, do you have a plug for yourself, real quick? Anything?
Like I'm always looking for more deals in our buy box. That's really what we're always looking for. So if there's a mid-size sub-institutional commercial deal, has some value add on it, we'd love to take a look. Besides that, no, we don't really need additional capital sources or anything else. I just tell everyone who's listening to this fucking thing, get off your ass and do some deals. If you're listening to this and you're in analysis paralysis, stop it. Just go find a fucking partner and do a goddamn deal.
Sweet. Love it.
Love it. I love it. Thanks,
All right.
guys.
See you guys.
Adios.